It's been obviously fantastic, and she's been a little joy of heaven. But at the same time, it's a more responsibility.
Just minutes ago, the palace confirmed tragic news about Princess Charlotte's future, leaving the world stunned. Charlotte has always been a bright star in the royal family, often shining so strongly that she sometimes overshadows her brother, Prince George, during public events. Now this sudden announcement raises even deeper questions. Could it be that the line of succession has been altered? Could the royal family now see Charlotte as a threat to King George's future? And why was this news kept quiet until now? As the truth spreads, one thing is clear. Something significant is shifting behind the palace walls. The announcement that shook the world. At exactly 8:14 this morning, December 2nd, a message from Kensington Palace appeared on screens across the world. It was short, just a few lines. But the moment people read it, they stopped whatever they were doing. The Prince and Princess of Wales have reached a decision regarding Princess Charlotte's future role within the institution. 20 words that felt like a thunderclap in the middle of a quiet winter morning. Within seconds, phones started buzzing everywhere. News channels interrupted their regular shows. In London, people walking to work slowed down and stared at their phones. A woman in a coffee shop in Manchester gasped and showed her friend. An elderly man in Scotland shook his head and muttered something about Diana. Across the ocean in America, where the sun had not even come up yet, news anchors were pulled out of bed. CBS ran a breaking banner. CNN brought in royal experts who all looked stunned. Everyone was asking the same question. Did William and Catherine really just do what we think they did? Because this was not just another royal announcement. This was something nobody expected. This was William and Catherine making a choice that broke with hundreds of years of tradition. They were protecting their daughter from something the royal family has never been able to protect anyone from before. The curse of being born second. The curse of being the spare. For people who remember Princess Diana, this hit differently. They remembered how the palace treated her, how it chewed her up and spit her out. They remembered watching Prince Harry struggle his whole life, always living in his brother's shadow, always the backup, never quite good enough. And now, here were William and Catherine saying no, not to our daughter, not to Charlotte. She will not be put through that. The announcement did not have a lot of details. It did not explain everything. But what it said was clear enough. Charlotte's future would not be decided by the palace. It would not be decided by tradition or duty, or what people expected. It would be decided by Charlotte herself when she was old enough to choose. And until then, her parents would protect her childhood with everything they had. In Britain, reactions were all over the place. Older people, the ones who grew up believing the royals should sacrifice everything for duty, were upset. They thought this was a weakness. They thought Charlotte was being spoiled. But younger people saw it differently. They saw two parents trying to save their little girl from a system that has hurt so many people before her. They saw William finally learning from the mistakes that destroyed his brother's happiness. In America, the reaction was even stronger. People there have watched the royal family for decades like it was a real-life drama. They watched Diana's fairy tale turn into a nightmare. They watched Harry and Meghan get torn apart by the press and the palace. And now they were watching William and Catherine try to write a different ending, one where the little girl gets to be happy, one where being born royal does not mean your whole life is decided before you even understand what life is. But this decision did not come out of nowhere. It was not made overnight. Behind that short statement released this morning were months of arguments, sleepless nights, and painful conversations. There were meetings with the king. There were warnings from advisors. There were moments when William and Catherine were not sure they had the strength to fight the most powerful institution in Britain. And yet they did it anyway. Because when it came down to it, they loved their daughter more than they feared the consequences. So how did we get here? What happened behind closed doors that led to this moment? And what does this really mean for Charlotte's future? The answers are more complicated and more heartbreaking than anyone realized. The quiet changes. Nobody noticed. For almost a year now, something has been shifting. It was small at first, so small that most people did not notice. But if you paid close attention to the royal family, if you watched their schedules and their public appearances, you could see it. Princess Charlotte was disappearing. Not literally, of course. She was still there. She still lived with her family. She still went to school. But she was showing up less and less at royal events. And when she did show up, something about her seemed different. Smaller, more nervous. It started back in the spring. There was a charity event that Catherine attended, and people expected Charlotte to come with her. It was a Saturday. The kids were not in school, but Charlotte was not there. A palace spokesperson said she had a family commitment, but they did not say what it was. Royal reporters raised their eyebrows. That was a strange excuse, vague, the kind of excuse you give when you do not want to tell the truth. Then came Trooping the Color in June. This is one of the biggest events of the year for the royal family. Everyone shows up. The whole family stands on the balcony at Buckingham Palace and waves to the crowds. Charlotte was there. But people who watched closely noticed something. She looked uncomfortable. She kept looking at her mother like she was asking for permission to be there. George, her older brother, stood confident next to their father. He is being trained to be king one day, so he is used to the cameras. But Charlotte looked like she wanted to disappear. Through the summer, it got more obvious. Royal events that used to include all three kids, George, Charlotte, and Louis, now only had George and Louis. Charlotte was missing. When she did appear, it was only at private family things, garden parties, walks in the park, casual moments where there was no ceremony, no pressure, no cameras flashing in her face. People started talking about it online. Forums filled up with questions. Where is Princess Charlotte? Is she okay? Is something wrong? Some people thought maybe she was sick. Others wondered if there was drama inside the family. But the people who really understood what was happening, the ones close to the palace, whispered something different. They said this was intentional. They said William and Catherine were pulling Charlotte back on purpose, protecting her, hiding her from something, and they were right. Catherine had been testing something new. She started filling Charlotte's schedule with things that had nothing to do with being royal. Art classes, music lessons, time with her school friends, all of it kept private, away from the press. When a photographer got lucky and caught a picture of Charlotte leaving a pottery class in Windsor, people were shocked by what they saw. Charlotte was smiling, really smiling, not the polite smile she gave at official events. A real free, unguarded smile. The smile of a kid who was just being a kid. Inside the palace, people noticed what William and Catherine were doing. Advisors started asking questions. Why was Charlotte not attending more events? Why was she being kept out of the public eye? Older members of the royal family, the ones who believed in tradition and duty above everything, started to worry. They thought William and Catherine were making a mistake. They thought Charlotte needed to be trained, prepared, molded into her role, because that is what the royal family has always done. That is how it has always worked. But William and Catherine were not interested in how it always worked. They were interested in what was best for their daughter. The breaking point came in September. There was a big meeting at Windsor Castle about the children's education. The conversation started with George, which made sense. George is going to be king one day. His education is the most important. But then the conversation shifted to Charlotte. And that is when things got tense. Catherine started asking questions. Hard questions. What obligations will Charlotte actually have when she grows up? What is she required to do? What roles are essential? And what harm has been done in the past when kids were forced into roles they never chose? The room went quiet. Nobody wanted to answer those questions, because the answers were uncomfortable. Then Princess Anne spoke up. Anne is the Queen's daughter. She has spent her whole life doing royal duty. She never complains, she never stops working. She is the most dedicated royal of her generation. So when she spoke, people listened. Anne said something nobody expected. She talked about her own childhood. She talked about what it was like to grow up as a girl in the royal family, always visible but never really important, always necessary but never powerful. She said it was frustrating. She said it was hard. And then she said something that shocked everyone in the room. She said if she could have chosen a different life, she might have. That moment changed everything. If Princess Anne, the woman who gave her whole life to duty, could admit that the system hurt her, then maybe the system was broken. Maybe it needed to change. William and Catherine left that meeting knowing what they had to do. And by late November, the palace staff were told to prepare for a major announcement about Charlotte, one that would change how people saw her future forever. But before that announcement could be made, William and Catherine had to have the hardest conversation of their lives. A conversation that would force them to choose between protecting their daughter and protecting the institution. And for the first time in royal history, the parents chose the child. When the royal secrets reached their breaking point. The moment everything changed happened on a cold morning in mid-November. William was sitting in the private sitting room at Adelaide Cottage, the small house where his family lives, away from the grand palaces and the watching eyes. He was looking at a piece of paper, a schedule, Charlotte's schedule for the next year. It listed 3 formal state events, 2 Commonwealth appearances, a role in a military parade planned for next summer. On paper, it looked reasonable, manageable, the kind of schedule any young royal might have. But as William read through it, all he could think about was his mother. He thought about Diana, about how the palace had used her, how they had taken a shy young woman and turned her into a symbol, a product, something for the public to consume. He thought about how she had smiled for the cameras even when she was dying inside, how she had waved to crowds even when she wanted to scream, how she had tried so hard to protect her sons from that same fate, and how she had failed because the system was too strong. William looked at that schedule and saw his daughter's future being written for her, and he could not let it happen. Catherine came into the room carrying tea. She saw the look on his face and knew immediately. They had been avoiding this conversation for months, but they could not avoid it anymore. She sat down next to him and said very quietly, "We have to decide now, because if we wait, someone else will decide for us." What happened next was the most important conversation William and Catherine have ever had as parents. It was not an argument. It was not a fight. It was 2 people trying to figure out how to save their daughter from a system that has crushed so many people before her. William started by saying what scared him most. He was afraid that if they protected Charlotte from royal duty, she would end up lost, without purpose, without a place in the world. He was afraid they would isolate her by trying to save her. Catherine said the bigger danger was forcing Charlotte into a role that would suffocate her, just like it almost suffocated Harry, just like it ended Diana. Back and forth they went, not fighting, just digging into all the fears they had buried since Charlotte was born. Then William said something he had never said out loud before. He said he had spent his whole childhood watching Harry struggle, always second, always compared to William, always necessary but never essential. And William had done nothing to help him because he was too young, too overwhelmed, too trapped in his own grief after their mother passed away. But now he was a father, and he would not let Charlotte become the next Harry. He would not let her spend her whole life feeling like she was not good enough. Catherine looked at her husband and said then, "We tell them no. We tell the palace. We tell the advisors. We tell Charles if we have to. Charlotte is not a backup plan. She is our daughter, and we get to decide what she needs." But it was not that simple, because the decision was not just theirs to make. King Charles was still the head of the family, and he had his own ideas about what was best. When William asked to meet with his father privately, Charles came prepared. He brought history books, examples of royal children who did fine in supporting roles, arguments about tradition and duty and the importance of keeping the line of succession visible and strong. Charles was not cruel. He was not dismissive. He just could not see past the system, because the system was all he had ever known. William listened to his father, and then he asked one question, just one. He said, "If you could go back and change Anne's childhood knowing what her life became, would you?" Charles did not answer right away. He could not, because the truth was too painful. Anne had served with everything she had, but at what cost? Her privacy, her freedom, her ability to just exist as a person instead of a symbol. all of it sacrificed for an institution that never valued her the way it valued the heir. Finally, Charles said, "I cannot give you permission to tear down what has stood for centuries. But I will not stop you if you think this is what Charlotte needs." It was not the blessing William wanted, but it was enough. The last person they had to convince was Princess Anne herself. She asked to meet with Catherine privately. The two women met at Anne's countryside home, far away from the palace and all its listening ears. Anne did not waste time. She asked Catherine directly, "Are you sure about this? Because once you do this, you cannot take it back. People will say Charlotte is either being protected or being rejected. And the story they tell will depend on who is doing the telling." Catherine looked Anne in the eyes and said, "I would rather she be seen as protected than broken." Anne stared at her for a long moment. Then she nodded. "You are making the right choice, but be ready. The palace does not forgive easily, even when it should." William and Catherine went home that night knowing what they had to do. They knew people would be angry. They knew traditionalists would say they were weakening the monarchy. They knew Harry and Meghan's story would be brought up over and over again, comparisons made, motives questioned. But they also knew something more important. Charlotte deserved a childhood, a real one. One where she got to figure out who she was before the world told her who she had to be. On the evening of December 1st, they sat down with George and Charlotte and told them together. George listened quietly. He already knows he is going to be king one day. He understands his path is set, but Charlotte, who is only 9 years old, asked a question that broke her mother's heart. She said, "Does this mean I am not important anymore?" Catherine pulled her daughter close and said, "No, sweetheart. It means you get to decide how you want to be important." And with that, the decision was made. All that was left was to tell the world. But what William and Catherine did not fully understand yet was just how much this one decision would change everything. Not just for Charlotte, but for the entire royal family, and for the future of the monarchy itself. The storm was coming, and it would arrive with the sunrise, the long shadow of being second. To really understand why William and Catherine made this choice, you have to understand something that the royal family does not like to talk about: the curse of being the spare. It is not a real curse. There is no magic or superstition, but it might as well be a curse because of how much damage it has done. For hundreds of years, the monarchy has worked the same way. You need an heir, someone to inherit the throne, and you need a spare, a backup in case something happens to the heir. One child gets trained to be the most important person in the country. The other child gets trained to be ready just in case, but never quite important enough. History is full of spares who were destroyed by this system. Princess Margaret was one of them. She was Queen Elizabeth's younger sister. Beautiful, smart, full of life. But she spent her whole life in Elizabeth's shadow. She wanted to marry the man she loved, but the palace said no. She wanted a real role, something meaningful, but the palace gave her busy work. She spent decades smiling at events and cutting ribbons and attending dinners, always visible but never truly valued. By the end of her life, she was bitter and lonely and broken by a system that had used her and then discarded her. Prince Andrew was another. When he was young, he was second in line to the throne. He served in the military and was treated like a hero. But once William was born, Andrew dropped down the line. He was not needed anymore. The palace did not know what to do with him, so they let him drift. And he made terrible choices, got involved with terrible people, and now his name is synonymous with scandal and shame. And then there is Harry, William's younger brother, the one who grew up being called the wild one, the party prince, the screw-up. Harry spent his whole life being compared to William. The press loved to pit them against each other. William, the responsible future king, Harry, the messy spare. Even when Harry served in the military, even when he started a whole organization to help wounded veterans, even when he did good and important work, he was still just the spare. And eventually, it broke him. He married Meghan and tried to make it work within the system, but the system did not want them. The press tore Meghan apart. The palace did nothing to protect them. And finally, Harry said enough. He walked away, left the country, left the family, because staying was breaking him. William watched all of this happen, and he carries the guilt of it, because he knows deep down that Harry suffered so that William could be safe. Harry took all the bad press, all the criticism, all the scrutiny, so that William could be the perfect prince. And when Harry finally broke, William did not know how to fix it, because he was part of the system that broke Harry in the first place. When Charlotte was born, all of that guilt came rushing back. William held his baby daughter and felt relief and terror at the same time. Relief because Charlotte would never have to be queen. Terror because she would have to be something worse, the spare, the backup, the one who is only important until she is not. Catherine saw things differently. She did not grow up royal. She married into this family as an adult, so she does not have the same blind loyalty to tradition that William was raised with. She loves the monarchy. She respects it, but she does not worship it, and she understands something William was taught never to question. A system that harms children is a system that needs to change, no matter how old it is. Catherine started doing research. She wanted to know what happened to other royal spares, the ones who tried to build their own lives outside the system. What she found was heartbreaking. She read about Princess Margaret's struggles with depression, about how the palace used her when they needed her and ignored her when they did not. She studied Prince Andrew's fall from grace, how he went from war hero to scandal in a single generation because no one gave him a real purpose. And she watched in real time as Harry was driven out of the family by a system that could not let him be both royal and happy. One afternoon, Catherine put together a file of everything she had learned. Timelines, quotes, studies about children raised in high-pressure environments. And one piece of information that stopped William cold when he saw it. Among British royals born into supporting roles in the last 100 years, fewer than half reported being happy with their lives in private interviews years later. William stared at that number. Then he looked at his wife and said, "We cannot let that be Charlotte's future." The modern world made everything harder. Charlotte was not growing up in the 1950s when the press was polite and respectful. She was growing up now in the age of social media and 24-hour news cycles and people who thought they had the right to comment on every single thing she did. Every photo of her was analyzed. Every expression on her face was turned into a headline. People who had never met her decided who she was and what she should become. And then there was George, her older brother, the heir. His future was set in stone. He would be king. His whole life was already planned out. Every school he would attend, every subject he would study, every skill he would need to learn. William and Catherine accepted this because they had no choice. George was born to be king. There was no way around it. But Charlotte, her future was not written yet. So why should her whole childhood be sacrificed for a role she might never even want? That question kept Catherine up at night. Why should Charlotte's life be limited just because she was born second? Why should she spend her whole childhood preparing for a job she might not choose? Why should she be trapped by a system that has hurt so many people before her? The more Catherine thought about it, the more convinced she became. Charlotte deserved better. She deserved a choice. And if William and Catherine did not fight for that choice now, while Charlotte was still young, it would be too late. The system would swallow her up just like it swallowed up Margaret and Andrew and Harry. One day, a video went viral online. It was just a simple question asked by a young woman on TikTok. She said, what if Charlotte wants to be a doctor, or an artist, or just normal? What if she does not want to spend her life cutting ribbons and attending galas? Does anyone ever ask her what she wants? Millions of people watched that video, and millions of people started asking the same question. William and Catherine saw it too, and they realized the world was changing. People did not just accept anymore that royal children had no choice. People were starting to ask why. And that question, simple as it was, changed everything. Because the truth was, Charlotte had never been asked what she wanted. She was 9 years old. She liked horses and painting and playing with her brothers. She had no idea what constitutional duty meant, no idea what it meant to be the spare. But the system was already closing in on her, preparing to tell her exactly who she had to be. William and Catherine decided they would not let that happen. Not without a fight, but fighting the palace, fighting tradition, fighting centuries of expectations. That was not going to be easy. And the cost of that fight was something they were only just beginning to understand. Catherine's final stand. The moment Catherine knew she could not wait any longer came on an ordinary afternoon in late October. She had gone to pick Charlotte up from school. She arrived early and parked away from the other parents, trying to stay out of sight. When the school doors opened, children poured out in noisy, happy waves. Charlotte came out alone. Catherine watched her daughter walk toward the car with her head down and her shoulders hunched. It was a posture Catherine recognized immediately because she had done the same thing years ago, back when she first joined the royal family and the world was watching her every move. Back when she was trying to make herself smaller so people would not notice her as much. When Charlotte got in the car, Catherine asked if everything was okay. Charlotte hesitated. Then she said, "Some of the girls at school were asking if I am going to be queen when George is king." Catherine felt her heart break a little. "What did you tell them?" Charlotte looked out the window. "I said I do not know, because I do not." That night, after the kids were asleep, Catherine sat alone in the dark. She thought about her own life, about how hard it had been to join the royal family, the training, the rules, the constant feeling that every single thing she did was being judged. She had survived it, but barely, and she had chosen it. She was an adult when she married William. She knew what she was signing up for. Charlotte had not chosen any of this. She was just born into it. And the system was going to define her whole life before she even had a chance to figure out who she was. The next morning, Catherine called for a meeting with William's private secretary. She did not ask politely. She told him they needed to talk. Now. The meeting was short. Catherine laid out everything she had been thinking about, all her research, all her fears, and her conclusion. Charlotte's future could not keep going the way it was going. Something had to change. The private secretary, a man who had worked for the royal family for decades, listened without interrupting. When Catherine finished, he said carefully, "This is not a small decision." Catherine's voice was steady and cold. "Then it is a good thing I have been thinking about it for years." Word spread through the palace quickly. People started talking. Catherine was pushing for something big, something that had never been done before. When William found out, he was not surprised. He knew his wife. He knew how fiercely she protected their children, but he also knew this was going to be a fight. That evening, Catherine told William exactly what she wanted. She wanted Charlotte to have a childhood, a real one where she could figure out who she was without the palace telling her, one where she did not have to smile for cameras or attend events or be trained for a role she never asked for. William asked the question he had been afraid to ask. What if we are wrong? What if protecting her now just leaves her unprepared later? Catherine did not hesitate. Then we will have given her a childhood. And that is more than this system has given most of its children. Over the next few weeks, Catherine changed. People close to her noticed it. She was quieter, more focused. She stopped trying to please everyone. She was a mother in protection mode, willing to take on the most powerful institution in Britain if it meant keeping her daughter safe. One night, Catherine told a close friend that she had been having nightmares about Charlotte's future. In the dreams, Charlotte was older, standing at formal events, smiling for cameras. But her eyes were empty, hollow. The same look Catherine had seen in old photos of Princess Margaret. The same look she had seen on Harry's face in his last years as a working royal. The look of someone who was present but not really living. That image haunted Catherine. It made her realize that her job as a mother was not to produce a perfect royal child. Her job was to raise a daughter who could look back on her childhood without regret. And the only way to do that was to fight now, before it was too late. The breaking point came at a royal event in November. Catherine watched Charlotte interact with people who had come to see the family. Charlotte smiled on cue, waved politely, said all the right things, and Catherine saw herself 20 years ago, pretending to be fine while slowly disappearing inside. She would not let her daughter inherit that same performance, not when she had the power to stop it. After the event, Catherine told William she was done waiting. Whatever happened next, whatever criticism came, she was going to protect Charlotte, even if it meant going against the palace, even if it meant breaking tradition, even if it meant people called her a bad mother or said she was spoiling her daughter. William saw the determination in his wife's eyes, the same strength he had fallen in love with years ago, and he knew she was right. They had to choose Charlotte over everything else, over duty, over tradition, over the crown itself. And so they did. What happens now? The announcement on December 2nd did not give a lot of details. It did not lay out a specific plan. But people who understand how the palace works know what it means. Charlotte's life is about to change in ways that no royal spare has ever experienced before. First, her education will be different. In the past, royal spares were educated in a way that kept them ready to step in if something happened to the heir. They were also trained for a lifetime of royal duties, ribbon cuttings, charity events, public appearances. Charlotte will not be trained that way. Instead, her education will focus on what she is actually interested in. If she loves science, she will study science. If she loves art, she will study art. The goal is not to make her into a perfect royal. The goal is to let her become whoever she wants to be. This is a huge change. It means Charlotte will not be forced into a role she does not want. She will have options, real options, something no spare has ever truly had before. Second, her public appearances will be rare. Charlotte will not disappear completely. She will still show up at big family events like Trooping the Color or Christmas at Sandringham, but she will not be expected to attend everything. She will not be dragged out for photo opportunities or used to boost the royal family's image. Her presence will be her choice, not an obligation. This is important because it protects Charlotte's privacy. It gives her space to be a kid without the whole world watching, and it sends a message that royal children are not public property. They are people. They deserve protection. Third, when Charlotte grows up, she will get to decide how much she wants to be involved in royal life. If she wants to be a working royal, attending events and representing the family, she can do that. But if she wants to step back and live a private life, she can do that too. She could have a normal career. She could live in another country if she wanted to. She could build a life that has nothing to do with being royal. This kind of freedom is almost unheard of in the British royal family. Historically, you were either all in or all out. You either dedicated your life to the crown or you were pushed aside. There was no middle ground. William and Catherine are trying to create that middle ground for Charlotte, a space where she can be royal and still have a life of her own. Of course, this decision will be compared to Harry and Meghan. People will say William is doing for Charlotte what the palace refused to do for Harry. And they would be right. Harry left because the system gave him no choice. He could not be both royal and happy. He had to pick one. Charlotte is being given the choice from the start. And that changes everything. The reaction to this announcement has been divided. In Britain, older people are upset. They think Charlotte is being let off too easily. They think every royal has a duty and Charlotte should not be exempt just because her parents want to protect her. But younger people see it differently. They think William and Catherine are finally doing what should have been done a long time ago, protecting a child from a system that has hurt too many people. In America, the reaction has been more positive. Americans have watched the royal family destroy itself over and over again. They watched Diana get chewed up, they watched Harry get driven out, and now they are watching William try to break the cycle. To them, this is not about duty or tradition. This is about two parents putting their child first, and Americans respect that. The big question everyone is asking is, what does Charlotte think about all of this? Palace sources say William and Catherine have talked to her in a way she can understand. They have told her she is loved, that she is not being pushed away, that they are just trying to protect her. But how much can a 9-year-old really understand about something this complicated? People close to the family say Charlotte seems lighter since the decision was made, like some invisible weight has been lifted off her shoulders. Maybe she does not fully understand what it all means yet, but maybe she can feel that her parents are fighting for her, and maybe that is enough for now. One thing is certain, this decision will affect George too. He is going to be king one day, and he will grow up knowing his sister was given a choice he was never offered. How that knowledge shapes him, whether it makes him more compassionate or more lonely, no one knows yet. But the relationship between George and Charlotte has already started to shift. George has become more protective of his sister, as if he understands that her freedom came at a cost someone will have to explain one day. For Charlotte, the future is wide open in a way it has never been for a royal spare before. She will grow up knowing her parents chose her over tradition. That is a gift, but it is also a burden, because she will spend her whole life being asked to justify that choice. She will be compared to other royals. People will question whether she is doing enough, contributing enough, living up to her privilege. But maybe, just maybe, she will also get to be happy. And in the long, painful history of the British monarchy, that would be a first. From the moment she first stepped into the public eye, Princess Charlotte has carried a spark that feels impossible to ignore. She may not be the future queen, but every new glimpse of her suggests something extraordinary is unfolding, something the royal family may not have fully prepared for. Who is Charlotte becoming, and why is the world paying such close attention to every step she takes? Princess Charlotte, the rising star shaping her own royal future. Princess Charlotte is growing into a confident, capable young girl, and every year reveals more of her natural leadership. Even in small family moments, Charlotte often shows a calm sense of order. Viewers have noticed how she gently organizes her brothers during public events, straightening Louis's posture, guiding him with a quiet hand, or reminding George to wave at the crowd. These tiny actions speak loudly. They show a child who is aware, responsible, and not afraid to take charge when needed. Her voice also reflects her confidence. Charlotte speaks clearly, politely, and with surprising boldness for her age. Whether she is greeting someone, thanking a guest, or replying to reporters' questions, she chooses her words carefully. Her calm tone makes her stand out. She speaks like a young girl who knows exactly where she belongs in a very public world. At school, Charlotte is known to be focused, energetic, and disciplined. Teachers describe her as cheerful but attentive, someone who participates eagerly in class activities. She enjoys sports, reading, and creative work, and she shows a healthy, competitive spirit. She blends kindness with confidence, never putting herself above others but never hiding her abilities either. These qualities suggest she is building a strong foundation for whatever future role she may take on, and her future could be fascinating. As the second child of the Prince and Princess of Wales, Charlotte is not the heir, but she may grow into one of the most influential spares in royal history. Many wonder if she will follow the path of Princess Anne, dedicated, hardworking, and respected for her loyalty to duty. Anne shaped her own identity through decades of service, and Charlotte could do the same, but with a modern twist. Or perhaps Princess Charlotte will grow into something completely different, something no royal spare has ever been before. As she gets older, many observers believe she could become a modern, influential figure with a powerful voice of her own. She may take on global roles, champion important causes, or rise as a strong public leader who blends royal tradition with a fresh, independent spirit. Charlotte's natural intelligence and confidence already hint at a girl who understands the world around her far more deeply than her age suggests. She watches carefully, carries herself with calm assurance, and steps forward when needed, quietly showing leadership in ways both simple and striking. Even though she is not expected to sit on the throne, she is clearly preparing for a future filled with purpose and responsibility. With each passing year, Charlotte grows into someone who may shine brightly in her own remarkable and unforgettable way.